Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Heff.
Miss Forrest.
And we are coming to you from the SecurityMetrics Threat Intelligence Center. And that's where we help secure your extended network. And we try to keep businesses safe from cyber threats. And it's been a fun 2 weeks for us in the news. Yeah. Have you been watching anything?
Oh, man, it's been unavoidable. Yeah, just an absolute madhouse of events happening. So, I mean, with that, yeah, let's get going with SecurityMetrics news.
Yeah, heck yeah. And you know what? As always, let's I think we should.
Shall we play a game?
Let's try to play a game here, right? Hey, DJ, if you're there, go ahead and play us our song. All right, Forrest. So a lot of things have happened in the last 2 weeks from the Solarwinds breach, and I think the viewers, they probably want to get a quick update. If you've read the news, there's been some updates. A lot of the incident response teams have finally had a chance to really dive in to the content and discover a lot of the artifacts that have been found from this breach, and we're going to try to share some of that stuff with you today. And I know, Forrest, did this story catch your eye at all?
Oh yeah. The Microsoft source code leak is huge. Just what's a couple things that are pretty interesting that really caught my eye on this. One, they're very specific in what they're stating here. You know, the company has not found indications of common techniques, procedures linked to abuse of forged SAML tokens against its corporate domain. So just that very specific identifier and clarifier, you know, abuse of forged SAML tokens. Okay, well, there's plenty of other avenues for attack. Leaves a lot of unknown still there. And also, you know, nor has it discovered that systems were used to attack other companies. So there's a lot of legal wiggle room there by leaving it very open-ended there. As you mentioned in the previous episode, when it comes to those kind of filings with like the SEC and those sort of companies, those carry a lot of weight. So they're very specific in what they're putting out there.
And that's the thing about this breach. I mean, all we really have to go on is the blog post that Microsoft put out there. So there's a lot of unknowns. And I know from our perspective and trying to protect our clients, it's tough to kind of wrap your hand around that. And when you think about how big Microsoft is, it's a huge target. There's not a lot of information found in that blog post from Microsoft. So when you combine that with being the most widely used software out there by a lot of businesses, it's a very appealing target for these advanced persistent threats.
Yeah, I think down the line here, we're going to start seeing some really interesting exploits that come about as a result of this. I think that by having that source code, it's definitely not impossible to try and identify vulnerabilities using reverse engineering and decompiling binaries and things like that. I mean, that's an entire field of study. A lot of people's bread and butter, getting into reversing binaries and executables and things like that. But having the source code makes it a heck of a lot easier for people to trace execution paths, see what is happening where, and try and find weak points to poke holes in. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot of stuff similar to what we saw with the CIA exploit leaks and all the NSA tool sets that got leaked a while back. I think it's going to be on that same sort of level where there's just all kinds of new malware that's able to come out as a result of this.
And that's all of that stuff combined with the fact that we don't know, Microsoft did not share which source code was leaked or accessed. We also don't know, you can't access the source code by yourself. So because of that, it creates a lot of consternation in businesses. What was accessed? We don't know where the affected source code was. We don't know the impact to any of the microservices, the APIs, the libraries, the SDKs. So that adds even more frustration into this breach. And it just came out like New Year's Eve, December 31st. And for an attacker, they can do a lot of things, like you mentioned. And the big thing, in my opinion, is the rootkits. Being able to write rootkits is, that's some nasty stuff there. So this is a developing story, and I'm sure it'll get bigger and not better, but it'll get bigger, and we'll find out a lot more as the story continues here.
Yeah, we definitely haven't heard the last of this, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to it time and again.
So this is the next story that we should definitely talk about. Is one of those things. It's an epic fail. All right. Fourth data breach that T-Mobile has had in the last 3 years. 4 data breaches in 3 years, Forrest. Oh my gosh.
That's a lot. That's really bringing the heat there. You would think with how much of a massive position they have in the market that there would be a lot more scrutiny happening, especially when like this last year the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. It seems like maybe they're a little more preoccupied with the business side of things rather than the operations side of things. So, but pretty interesting that fourth time's a charm. Maybe we'll see. Along with just the size of the company, there's a lot of subsidiaries that are using T-Mobile's networks as MVNOs. So they lease out time on their towers. And just operate essentially as an independent subsidiary. There's also some services that they operate themselves, like Boost Mobile, for instance. There's a bunch that they have. They have Metro. Let's just go down the list that I had here. Let's see. Boost Mobile, Google Fi, Metro, Straight Talk, TrackPhone, Walmart Family Mobile. They last I saw, there were about 26 different companies that were using T-Mobile's towers. So I couldn't find any clarification as to whether or not the call data that they mentioned, the call information, is impacted by this. I reached out to Google Fi support, and the response that they gave me was that they hadn't heard anything. So also went on their subreddit and posed a question, but that still has yet to gain any kind of official response.
The call out that I have for this, and essentially the call out that I have is the data that was released. And when you talk about what data was included in this breach, and for the FCC, they consider any customary proprietary network information to be part of, essentially it's mission critical data that has to be protected, and obviously you have to notify your customers when this stuff happens. So it may not contain the names, and that's what we understand, but it is sensitive in nature. It may not have PII, but it may be sensitive in nature, and because of that, the FCC obviously considers it sensitive, and you have to be notified. But to have 4 data breaches in 3 years, and again, you give T-Mobile some credit. I mean, it's a huge company. It has a lot of arms in a lot of areas, but at the same time, this stuff's got to get under control. You can't keep having these same breaches all the time.
Most definitely. The big thing with the type of data that's released, a lot of the time they try and minimize, and it's, it was just metadata. You can still glean a lot of information from metadata. You can get social graphs, you can find out patterns, habits, all kinds of stuff. So I consider metadata to be, in some cases, almost as deadly as personally identifiable information in some cases.
Yeah, big time. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about Whirlpool. Do you have a Whirlpool washer or dryer?
Nope. Thankfully, we're no smart devices in the kitchen yet. So hoping to keep it that way. We'll see.
Well, Whirlpool got hit with ransomware, and they put out this notice basically saying, "Hey, no customer information, nothing was leaked. You're okay. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. Nothing to see." But unfortunately, the ransomware gang that got them, it actually has a really fancy public presence, internet presence. Forrest, have you ever heard of these guys?
Yeah, this Nephilim group. Yeah, it was pretty interesting seeing that site that they put up. It's oddly professional. I don't know. It's pretty interesting for a ransomware group to have this kind of operation.
We'll put up an image here of their website, but they actually have a wall of shame news. So imagine you're Whirlpool and you say no customer information was taken, nothing to worry about here, move along. And then the group that popped them and is demanding the ransomware basically came out and said, no, Whirlpool cybersecurity, they're very fragile. It allowed us to breach their network a second time after they stopped negotiations. So they put out their site and they put up some information of things that were leaked. And obviously their version of the story, Nephilim's version of the story, is vastly different than Whirlpool's. But it just goes to show you a lot of these advanced persistent threat actors, they have now a public presence. They've got a website where they release news articles and stories, and they're just trying to really put the word out there that there's two sides of every story. So
yeah, and it's interesting that they come back with there was private information there, and we got it, and here's a sample. So really turning up the heat on their response.
All right, let's get jiggy with it, right? Will Smith getting jiggy with it. Oh, man. Forrest, these AWS, nobody can lock these things down. I mean, last year, it was insane the number of times we talked about AWS being popped. AWS. I mean, I got tired of it after a while, and yet it's back.
Yep. Yeah. People not rotating out access tokens, or there's a lot of hygiene that needs to happen there. A lot of hand washing. Don't think that's happening nearly to the extent that it should be.
Oh my God, it's all about the red alert. Red alert. Red alert. I feel like I'm in Star Trek, Forrest. All right.
All hands stand to battle stations.
All hands to battle stations around AWS. So this is a story coming out of India, and if you're not familiar with Swiggy, they're basically a payment processor firm. They handle a lot of transactions, and the story goes that, and I commend them anytime a company puts out a press release, says, hey, we were popped and here's how it happened, and this is the gist of the story. I appreciate that because it helps other companies in that same realm that are trying to protect their payment processing software, and it helps them out. I know that here at SecurityMetrics, we have some tools to help folks in that area of securing and locking down the payment processing. But in this situation, you have this AWS, the access key gets exploited. It enables unauthorized access. Not a pretty situation for Jiggy getting swiggy. Hackers are getting jiggy with Swiggy. I think that's the headline we're calling it. So let's switch gears. We got another story to talk about too, and that is the December count for the number of breaches. OMG, man. Tell me you've seen this story.
Yeah. Biggest year for breaches by far, and it's just gonna keep going up. As time progresses, this is the new arena, and a lot more of our lives are happening online. As such, will follow. Crime will also continue to proceed online. So, the sheer depth and breadth of exposure online is just going to continue to grow.
Well, in December, according to the charts, 148 million records. Let that sink in. 148 million records breached in the month of December, man. The highest number ever of publicly disclosed incidents. And that's only the incidents we know about. There's a lot more out there that just haven't been disclosed yet that we don't know about. So this list is actually going to get a lot larger. So we've included the link, and it's exhausting. If you want to see 134 different security incidents in the month of December, it covers a wide wide swath. It's not just ransomware stuff. It's privacy, it's data breaches, it's a whole bunch of different things. So unbelievable. That's the way we close out 2020, or maybe not. Maybe it's not unbelievable the way 2020's been, Forrest.
Yeah, and we'll see. I think a lot more of this. We'll see more stuff backdated. A lot of places are coming out and will turn around and say, well, this happened back in November, December, but we were still in the process of resolution, and now we're disclosing it, a few months later, as whatever legal requirements may apply with that. So. That number could retroactively continue to grow, and that just the sheer numbers, you were saying, 148 million records and 134 incidents. That's over 1 million records per incident. It's an obscene amount of data that's getting lost out there.
Heartbreaking too, because it's our friends, it's our family, it's our folks, man, that are just all involved in this and getting their stuff, their data breached. So, okay, we need to obviously talk about privacy, and we Forrest and I love talking about privacy. Sometimes we get so on a rant about these breaches because that's what makes the news, and that's what, if it bleeds, it leads, right? But the banking regulations, the banking regulators are actually proposing a rule for a 36-hour notice of breach. So if you get popped and you're in the banking sector in the United States, you have 36 hours to notify the Federal Reserve, the Federal Deposit Insurance, the corporation, the FDIC, the Treasury Office, Department of Treasury. You imagine that 36 hours. Is that enough time? I don't even think from the minute you get popped and the time your incident response folks get involved, is that enough time to get back to the feds?
It's hard to say because I mean, a lot of the time within 36 hours, you're still trying to do a lot of damage control and also trying to loop in various potentially bureaucratic agencies in parallel with that would be very frustrating. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of pushback on this. The biggest thing I could see them trying to push back on is that time window. Not necessarily the requirements to disclose the breach itself, just the time frame in which that needs to be put out there.
Yeah, it doesn't give a lot of time for you to get context to what's actually going on. And again, the 53-page proposed rule that has been released for people to review, there's a lot of stuff in there, and to try to understand it all and explain it all in a short podcast is really difficult. But essentially what we have here is a notification of incident happening in your environment and so on. So I'm looking forward to this. I'd like to see it at 48 hours. If it happens on a Friday, and the bank's closed, that's a challenge. So the other hot topic, Forrest, and going into 2021 is all of these supply chain issues. And we obviously have to talk about it because it's not going away.
Yeah, supply chain issues definitely are not going away anytime soon. I think there was a bit of a moment when the Supermicro supply chain was being called into question by Forbes that really caused people to stop and take a look at the hardware side of things. I don't think we've really had that moment up until now where that has been the case for the software side. So I think this will cause a lot of people to stop and really reflect on where they're obtaining their software from, things of that nature. Although even then, this is pretty hard to detect because this was a first party update. So we tell people to install updates. Well, this was an update, so it's kind of a real sticky situation to be in.
So this trend line will keep continuing with all these supply chain issues as we move into 2021. Let's talk about the other item here is the Solarwinds breach. I think the last time, if you joined us in the previous podcast, we tried to dive into it. More information has come to light as more and more incident response teams are able to really dive in and truly understand what the heck is going on from a technical standpoint. So there's been a great technical analysis, and we've included the link in our blog here if you want to read more about it. But essentially, these attackers, as we talked about before, they were able to gain access to SolarWinds software development pipeline, and they were able to maliciously insert code that, when was pushed out to folks and business owners, about 18,000 folks downloaded this malicious update, and essentially that's how this whole thing got started. So there's a fantastic site. If you get a chance, please take a look at it.
Yeah, with the SolarWinds thing, it definitely was not a smash and grab. They were in there very stealthily for a very long period of time, just trying to hang out and not rock the boat for as long as possible. The more information they're able to extricate that way, the better for their positioning in the long term. These people definitely were not looking for short term gain by any means. They're going for the long con. So it'll be interesting to see what they then use all of this to leverage operations in the future.
And Forrest, in conclusion, we're going to see a lot more of this type of damage where the infected system, the attackers are essentially trying to stay unnoticed from security products in different business environments. And as they do that, then we can expect to see more of these types of widespread similar attacks. All right, as we kind of wrap this up today, I do want to make sure we touch on the $14 million ransomware business model that's out there. So, these ransomwares are not going away. And a question was posed, a great article out there, and we've included the link as well. How high can ransomware go?
What I find interesting about these deals, where the people that have ransomed you and stolen your data are then turning around and wanting to double dip and say, pay us X amount, or we're gonna release all this information. It's pretty sketchy. I mean, you're already dealing with people that have a very loose moral framework as it stands. So what it's you don't really have much assurance that even if you do pay, who's to say they aren't going to then triple dip and turn around and sell all the data to some other nefarious organization that's then going to try and leverage that for further crime.
And the thing about this ransomware stuff is, you've got the attack, and getting the decryption key is what part one of this, right? And then the second part is, you have that ransom for the decryption key, but then you also have the ransom for, getting access to your encrypted data, your unencrypted data, getting it back. So you kind of have this crazy dipping the hand in the Kool-Aid 2 times to try to get money that the threat actors are doing. So that trend line is going to continue, obviously, in 2021. But the real question is, how high can it go? And especially now, when you talk about the government and, putting the clamp down on hiring a third party to pay your ransomware, you can't do that anymore. You can't pay it yourself. And not only that, you can't hire someone to do it here in the United States for you. The Treasury Department has really clamped down on that with regulations.
As you were mentioning, with the regulations barring you from using essentially middlemen to broker those types of deals for paying ransoms, that's now no longer an avenue. So it'll be interesting to see how things evolve over the next little bit here.
All right, wrapping things up here, Forrest. I'm a WhatsApp fan. I don't know if you use WhatsApp, but they've updated their privacy, and they asking users to accept terms of services, or if you don't accept their terms of services, you're going to lose your account.
So yeah, privacy is my bread and butter. I absolutely love it, and so being able to see these requirements for these companies to disclose what information they're collecting, I see it definitely as an opportunity for people to start to adopt better alternatives.
So WhatsApp, essentially, I feel like you're in one of those situations like Tattoo from Fantasy Island. You must obviously accept their privacy, their terms of services, if you want to use their program. But then on the same token, if you don't, then, it's their house, their rules, move on, right? Choose a different communication programs out there. So WhatsApp has a parent, their parent is Facebook, and they want to obviously comply with the parent's demands. So, and on that note, we thank you for joining us here on the SecurityMetrics news. And from all of us here at the Threat Intelligence Center, we're glad you joined us. Stay tuned for next week. Please subscribe. If you subscribe, if we get over 5,000 subscribers, I plan to do the Chris Farley impersonation for you. So please join us. And thanks again for taking your time out of your day to hear our podcast.